The building of the pyramids has fascinated historians for centuries. With no electricity and no machinery, the construction of these giant monuments has always been an awe-inspiring mystery. So, are we any closer to discovering the techniques of these ancient builders? Let's see. Spoiler alert, it probably wasn't aliens. The Great Pyramid at Giza has caused debate over its construction since ancient Greece. Herodotus was a famous Greek historian and geographer born around 490 BCE, and he traveled to Egypt to take in the wonders of the ancient buildings. When Herodotus visited Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza was already over 2,000 years old. Herodotus claimed that the Egyptians living near the Great Pyramid hated the memory of the pharaohs who built the pyramids and held no reverence for them. He stated that they were created by human effort and suffering under the reign of an unpopular leader. However, Herodotus visited Egypt while the 27th dynasty ruled. This period was during the Persian occupation, so these views may have been influenced by the socio-political atmosphere of the time. Moreover, Herodotus didn't speak Egyptian, but he must have been familiar with Persian as he was born in a city under Persian rule. Herodotus speculated that in addition to building the Great Pyramid, a road of polished stone was made leading from the Nile, plus a canal that supplied the pyramid with water for a moat. He claimed that the project took 20 years and the Egyptians utilized wooden machines that lifted the stones. Herodotus noted that the pyramid's sides were like stairs and they were built one step at a time, with the polished stone outer layer added from the top down. Herodotus gleaned his information from what he was told while in Egypt rather than any other research. Nevertheless, his work is still cited today. During the early 1880s, archaeologist Flinders Petrie undertook survey work on the Giza Plateau. His work suggested that the ancient Egyptians leveled the area chosen for the Great Pyramid by cutting trenches in the bedrock in the form of a grid. These trenches were then filled with water, and the stone was cut at the water level to create a level base. This supposition was, in part, confirmed by Mark Lehner in the 1980s, when he produced a map of the plateau and included the holes and trenches. He found that the Egyptians had not leveled the entire area, but had ensured that the strips that made up the perimeter of the pyramid were as horizontal as possible. In 2013, Pierre Tallet discovered the oldest known papyri in the world, written by men involved in the building of the Great Pyramid, including one official named Mirror. Mirror mentions filling a boat with stone at Tura and taking it down the Nile to Giza. He also writes that he reported to the noble Ankh-Haf, who was the half-brother of Pharaoh Khufu. The papyri show the whole of Egypt was involved in building the pyramid, from Aswan in the south, where they mined granite, to the delta in the north, which provided food for the workers. The maritime activity also exploded as ships were built to carry materials along the Nile. A well-known mystery about the building of the pyramids is how they were built with near-perfect alignment with the four cardinal directions. Engineer and archaeologist Glenn Dash wrote, "The builders of the Great Pyramid of Khufu aligned the great monument to the cardinal points with an accuracy of better than 1/15 of 1 degree." He added that the three largest pyramids in Egypt exhibit the same manner of error. They are rotated slightly counterclockwise from the cardinal points. While this suggests that the same technique was used to align all three pyramids, historians have debated what method they might have used. Egyptian architects are known to have employed two specialized tools for surveying. One called a bay, a sighting tool that was probably made from the central stem of a palm leaf. The other instrument was similar to an astrolabe and was called the Instrument of Knowing, or Merkhet. Historians have held the belief that the Egyptians used the stars to help with the alignment of the pyramids due to the documented ceremony of Ped Shes, or stretching the cord. This ceremony supposedly used the constellations of the Great Bear and Orion to align the foundations of temples and pyramids to the directions of the compass. However, in later years, it appears that Ped Shes became more of a ritual than a process of building, as later temples weren't aligned as precisely as the earlier monuments. British Egyptologist I.E.S. Edwards suggested that the Egyptians worked out true north by measuring where a particular star rose in the east and set in the west, and then bisected the angle between the 2 points. Kate Spence of the University of Cambridge recently put forward a theory that the builders of the Great Pyramid used B Ursa Minoris and Z Ursa Majoris, which were in perfect alignment with true north around the date that the Great Pyramid was built. This theory could explain why later pyramids are out of alignment, as the stars started to deviate from the true north. Glenn Dash proposes a different hypothesis. Dash's research indicates that they may have used the autumnal equinox to pull off the astounding feat of aligning the pyramids. Dash used a rod, known as a gnomon, to cast a shadow and map the sun's path during the fall equinox. He then used a taut piece of string to draw a line around the pole and mark the 2 points where the circle met the curve of the sun's path. Dash drew a straight line between these points and created an almost perfect line running from east to west. This evidence is compelling because his experiment had the same degree of error as the Egyptian pyramids. His investigation doesn't provide any solid proof, but it does give us another convincing theory. The stones of the pyramid are another source of speculation. How are they cut, transported, and put in place? The precise cuts of the stone blocks have resulted in many theories on achieving this. Some historians speculate that Egyptians used the surface of the water to get a clean line, and that working on the stone underwater made it easier to manipulate. Others believe that the ancient Egyptians used wooden levels, string, or even paint to measure the angles. As to what tools they might have used, no drills or saws have survived, so historians must also speculate about this aspect of the build. Copper alloy saws and drills would have worn away too quickly if used to cut granite, so the ancient Egyptians must have had a way to make them viable. British Egyptologist Dennis Stocks conducted some experiments by adding quartz sand between the cutting edges of the granite and the drill to provide more bite. His method was effective and practical, as no special attachments would be needed, and desert sand was a plentiful resource. As far as maneuvering the blocks into place, there seem to be 2 main theories. One is the water shaft theory. This theory hypothesizes that canals were dug from the quarries to the building site. These canals enabled the workers to float the stones directly from the quarry to where they were needed. Proponents of this idea suggest that floats were made of inflated animal skins or cedar wood, and the canals led to a moat around the pyramid that allowed for access to any side. It is also postulated that water elevators were designed to float the blocks up the pyramid sides. Although there is no concrete evidence of this hypothesis, some imperfections found on the sides of the pyramid and traces of water evident throughout the structure lend weight to this theory. The second and more prevalent idea is the ramp theory. This notion has a lot of evidential clout and is generally accepted by historians. This theory claims that the pyramids were built with pure manpower. It is suggested that the stones were pulled across the desert using sleds and ropes. The Egyptians probably wet the sand to reduce friction and make the job easier. This practice can even be seen in some ancient wall paintings. The pyramid's blocks were then put in place by pushing them up sand ramps. It seems likely that a combination of ramps was used or that different pyramid styles required different ramps. The Egyptians would then use levers to help the blocks up when the limit of the ramp's height had been reached. This theory has more evidence to back it up, including the documented use of sleds and wall paintings showing giant statues being pulled up by large teams of men. Around 2018, Egyptian researchers discovered a 4,500-year-old ramp system in an alabaster quarry at Hatnub. Giannis Gordon describes, "This system is composed of a central ramp flanked by 2 staircases with numerous post holes." He suggested that a sled was attached to the wooden posts and used to carry the alabaster blocks up the steep slopes of the quarry. Supporters of the ramp theory quickly used this as further evidence to back up their idea, as the ramp was dated from when the Great Pyramid was built. However, others, like Kara Cooney, a professor at the University of California, are not so sure. Cooney points out that it's a stretch to take an alabaster quarry and say this is how the pyramids were built, because the pyramids weren't built out of alabaster. However, the ramp theory is further bolstered by traces found around other pyramids in the Old Kingdom. The findings suggest that around 5 distinctive styles of ramps may have been used. The Pyramid of Sekhemkhet at Saqqara was built during the 3rd dynasty and probably used a linear ramp. This type of ramp was perhaps only used to construct smaller step-style pyramids, as the ramp needed to be very wide. Traces of staircase ramps have been discovered at the Lisht, Abu Ghurab, Giza, Meidum, and Sinki pyramids. The staircase ramp involved building a steep and narrow ramp and steps up one face of the pyramid. The most controversial and disputed ramp style is the spiral, as it is unclear what it would have rested on or how corrective checks could have been made if the pyramid was covered up as it grew. While modern historians claim that the most effective ramp would be one that zigzagged up one face of the pyramid, called the reversing ramp, no signs of this type have been found. While traces of interior ramps have survived in multiple pyramids, there would still have been the need for an exterior ramp. While all the other aspects of the building are contested, historians generally agree that bronze and wooden levers were used to maneuver the blocks into place. The interior of the Great Pyramid is also a structural wonder and demonstrates an early attempt at corbel vaulting. The plugs in the ascending corridor seem to have been put into position from the inside, and the design allowed the workers who pushed in the plugs to escape down a shaft leading to the descending corridor where they could get out. It is a common movie trope to show the workforce building the pyramids as enslaved people, mistreated and worked to death. However, evidence suggests that they were made up by free people. Given that the Nile flooded farms and fields annually, there was a large workforce with little to do during these months. Farmers and villagers would all gather to work on the monumental structures, perhaps to work for rations or maybe just for the glory. It has been speculated whether large, labor-intensive projects like these were born out of the need to keep idle hands busy and prevent people from becoming apathetic, lazy, or turning to crime for entertainment. As the construction of a pyramid could take up to 20 years, this group project would probably have involved at least 2 generations of the same family. However the pyramids were built, there is no doubt that they are awe-inspiring monuments. Picturing how the Great Pyramid of Giza would have looked in its heyday, covered in glistening polished stone and topped with a golden capstone, you can easily see how Egypt stood out as a powerful land connected to the gods. The fact that these structures still stand today is a testament to the ingenuity, artistry, and sheer power of will of our ancient ancestors. To learn more about ancient Egypt, check out our book, Ancient Egypt, a captivating guide to Egyptian history, ancient pyramids, temples, Egyptian mythology, and pharaohs such as Tutankhamun and Cleopatra. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.